"I'm going back to my ex," she said after 15 years. "I never loved you." I just smiled. But what she didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment for years. Welcome to Amelia's Stories. Stay with us. Here you'll hear real stories of love, betrayal, and the strength to move forward. If you're new, let us know where you're from in the comments and don't forget to like and share. Daniel Miller was 42, a hardworking construction business owner. He had spent years building not only homes for others but also a life for his family. His wife, Rebecca "Becca" Hayes, was 40, working as a dental hygienist. They had been married for 15 years and had 2 children together, Ethan, 13, and Lily, 10. For Daniel, family was everything. His long days ended with dinners at the table, laughter from the kids, and quiet nights beside his wife. He thought their life was steady, maybe not perfect, but built on loyalty and trust. Then one ordinary evening, Becca dropped the words that would shatter it all. Calm, almost cold, she confessed that she was leaving him to go back to her old flame, Chad Whitman. Chad was a 41-year-old mechanic, known around town for his charm but never for stability. Daniel's chest tightened, his mind raced, but he didn't beg, shout, or plead. Instead, he gave her a quiet smile, the kind that hides both heartbreak and something she couldn't yet see, resolve. Daniel sat in silence as Becca's words echoed inside his head. She looked him in the eyes and told him she never loved him, that Chad was the man she had always wanted. Each word cut deeper than the last, but Daniel kept his face calm. Inside, though, it felt like someone had pulled the ground from beneath him. That night, long after Becca went to bed, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table. His mind wandered back to the years he had given her. His 20s spent working long hours, turning down nights out with friends, saving every dollar to build their home. While others were chasing dreams, he was building hers. He thought they had been a team. Within weeks, Becca packed her things and left. She didn't ask to take the children. She left Ethan and Lily with Daniel as if they were an afterthought. The kids cried themselves to sleep at night, asking why their mother had chosen someone else. Daniel held them close, promising everything would be okay, even as his own heart broke in silence. The hardest part wasn't just her leaving, it was seeing her around town with Chad. They walked into diners hand in hand, laughing as if nothing had been destroyed. Friends whispered, neighbors stared, but Daniel stayed quiet. He let Becca play out her fantasy while he focused on keeping life steady for Ethan and Lily. On the outside he was steady. On the inside he was unraveling. Daniel's mind refused to rest. At first he thought Becca's confession was sudden, but the more he replayed her words, the more he sensed there was more beneath the surface. Late at night, while the kids were asleep, he sat down with their bank statements. That's when the puzzle began to take shape. He noticed charges that didn't make sense. Hotel receipts in nearby towns, dinners for 2 on nights she claimed she was working late. A sick feeling settled in his stomach. He dug deeper, opening folders, checking months back. Slowly the truth bled out of the numbers. Becca hadn't just left him for Chad recently. She had been seeing him long before the night she confessed. Worse, she had been using their shared accounts to pay for it. Hidden withdrawals, expensive repairs on a car that wasn't theirs, and cash advances that lined up with Chad's sudden spending sprees. Daniel realized the betrayal wasn't only of his heart, but of his sweat and years of sacrifice. She had funded her affair with the money he earned. That memory of his smile the night she walked out, it wasn't confusion. It wasn't even strife. It was the spark of something colder. A quiet recognition that while she thought she had broken him, she had only freed him. Daniel's pain began to harden into resolve. If Becca and Chad thought they had won, they hadn't seen what he was capable of when pushed to the edge. Daniel knew emotions alone wouldn't protect his children or his future. Quietly he began to act. While Becca flaunted her new life, he sat across from a lawyer in a small office, laying out every piece of evidence he had uncovered. Receipts, bank statements, and even screenshots of messages. Each page painted a clear picture of betrayal and financial misconduct. His lawyer didn't need convincing. The case was solid. The first priority was Ethan and Lily. Daniel pushed for full custody, determined that Becca wouldn't be able to drift in and out of their lives at her convenience. The lawyer guided him through the steps, and Daniel followed carefully, making sure every detail was airtight. He wanted stability for his kids, something Becca had thrown away. Next he looked inward at his business and assets. Years of sweat and sacrifice had built his company, and he refused to let Becca or Chad benefit from it. He updated his will, restructured his contracts, and moved his savings into protected trusts. Every decision was deliberate, a shield around the life he had built. And to Becca he showed none of it. When she called or stopped by, Daniel spoke calmly, politely, even friendly. He nodded at mentions of Chad, never letting his true feelings slip. To her it seemed like he had accepted the new reality. But behind that steady mask, Daniel was building something much stronger. A quiet fortress that neither Becca nor Chad would ever breach. At first, Becca believed she had stepped into the life she always wanted. Chad was fun, spontaneous, and full of charm. But charm didn't pay bills. Within months, the cracks began to show. Chad bounced from one temporary job to another, never lasting long before quitting or getting fired. Money dried up quickly, and Becca found herself covering rent, groceries, and even Chad's bar tabs. Chad's drinking grew worse. Nights that were supposed to be romantic ended with him stumbling through the door, reeking of alcohol. Arguments became routine. He accused her of nagging, of trying to control him, while she snapped back that he was lazy and irresponsible. Their passionate reunion turned into a cycle of shouting, slammed doors, and silence. Frustrated and drained, Becca reached out to the one person she thought she could still lean on, Daniel. She called under the pretense of asking about the kids. But it didn't take long before she slipped in hints about her financial troubles. Daniel listened politely, then responded with calm finality. She had made her choice and he wouldn't step in to fix it. That simple refusal cut her more deeply than she expected. On the other side of town, Daniel tucked the phone away and went back to his evening with Ethan and Lily. Inside he felt no anger, only quiet satisfaction. The woman who had left him for her true love was finally discovering that fairy tales look different when reality comes crashing in. The day finally came when Daniel's lawyer called him into the office. The papers were ready, neat stacks outlining every detail. Months of preparation had led to this moment. When Becca arrived, she skimmed through the documents without much thought. Convinced Daniel was being too nice, she signed quickly, not realizing she had just surrendered the house, the savings, and custody of the children. By the time she understood, the ink was dry and the deal was sealed. Around town, whispers followed her. Friends who once supported her started keeping their distance. They saw the truth. She had walked out on her husband and kids for a man who couldn't provide even the basics. Invitations stopped coming, texts went unanswered. Her circle grew smaller with each passing week. Daniel, meanwhile, poured himself into fatherhood. He showed up at every school event, helped with homework, and made sure Ethan and Lily knew they were his priority. Slowly, the children's smiles returned, their laughter filling the home Becca had abandoned. But the illusion of peace shattered one afternoon. On Lily's birthday, Becca appeared with Chad by her side, trying to reclaim a role she had forfeited. The moment the kids saw them, tears flowed. The room went tense, the celebration ruined. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He simply stepped forward, calm but firm, and asked them to leave. That quiet authority said more than anger ever could. The message was clear. This was no longer her family to disrupt. Becca's fragile world finally cracked when she discovered what she had feared all along. Chad wasn't coming home as often, his excuses sloppy and predictable. One evening, she followed her instincts and confronted him directly. Instead of denying, Chad smirked and admitted he was seeing someone else. A younger woman he had met at a bar. His words were sharp, his laugh even sharper as he told Becca she was old news. The sting of his betrayal hit harder than she expected. For years she had convinced herself Chad was her real love, the man worth destroying a family for. Now she saw it clearly. He never valued her, not when she was married and not after she chose him. She had traded security, loyalty, and respect for a fantasy that collapsed into dust. Her finances were in ruins, her reputation shredded. Friends had drifted away and Chad was gone. The small apartment felt colder than ever and silence pressed down like a weight. With nowhere else to turn, her thoughts circled back to the man she had once dismissed so easily, Daniel. Desperation drove her to pick up the phone, her voice shaky as she left a message. She spoke of regrets, of mistakes, of wanting to see the kids more. Beneath it all was a plea to be let back into the life she had walked away from. For the first time, Becca realized she wasn't just alone. She was the architect of her own downfall. The knock came late at night, soft at first, then heavier as if weighed down by desperation. Daniel opened the door to find Becca standing there, eyes swollen, hair unkempt, her pride long gone. Tears streaked her cheeks as she whispered his name. She begged him to let her in, her voice trembling as she confessed she had made a mistake. She said she still loved him, that Chad was nothing compared to what they once had. Daniel didn't interrupt. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching the woman who had once torn his world apart. Every word she spoke sounded rehearsed, desperate attempts to rewind time. He let the silence stretch, his steady gaze unnerving her. Finally, when she reached out to touch his arm, he took a step back. A faint smile crossed his lips, the same calm, unreadable smile he had given her on the night she walked away. His voice was even, almost gentle as he reminded her. "You never loved me, remember? You told me yourself. And now I finally believe you." The words cut through the air like glass. Becca's knees buckled and she wept openly, her sobs echoing into the night. She pleaded again, but Daniel didn't waver. With a quiet firmness, he closed the door between them, shutting out the chaos she carried. Inside, the house was peaceful. For the first time, Daniel felt the weight of her betrayal lift. The door was shut, not just on her but on the past. Life slowly settled into a new rhythm for Daniel. With Becca gone, his focus stayed on Ethan and Lily. He made their home a place of warmth again, helping with school projects, cooking dinners, and showing up for every game and recital. The kids leaned on him, and in return he found strength in being the steady presence they needed. At work, his construction business thrived. The long hours felt lighter now, fueled not by obligation but by pride in what he was building, for himself and for his children. It was during this time he met Sarah Coleman, a school counselor who crossed paths with him through the kids' activities. Sarah was gentle, patient, and carried none of the bitterness Daniel had known in his marriage. Their connection grew naturally. Sarah didn't push, she simply listened, encouraged, and brought laughter back into his days. Ethan and Lily warmed to her quickly, drawn to her kindness. For Daniel, it was a reminder of what genuine affection and respect truly felt like. Meanwhile, Becca's world had narrowed. She scraped by on low-paying jobs, her name whispered in pity or judgment whenever she appeared around town. The sparkle she once chased was gone, replaced by a tired bitterness. Daniel never rubbed her downfall in her face. He didn't need to. His quiet success, the love of his children, and the beginnings of a new chapter with Sarah were enough. In silence, his revenge had written itself. Peace was the sweetest victory. The years moved quickly, and soon it was Ethan's high school graduation. The auditorium buzzed with prideful families, cameras flashing, voices echoing in celebration. Daniel sat in the front with Lily, taller now and nearly grown, and Sarah by his side. Together they looked every bit the family they had become. As the students filed across the stage, Daniel's eyes swept the crowd, and then he saw her. Becca sat alone in the back, shoulders slumped, her face lined with years of wear. The confident woman who once thought she could trade stability for passion was gone. In her place was someone weary, fragile, and forgotten. Their eyes met for a moment. No words passed between them, but the silence spoke volumes. Becca's gaze softened, heavy with regret, as if she could see every choice that led her to that lonely seat. For Daniel, there was no anger left, no bitterness. Just a quiet recognition of the life she had thrown away. As Ethan accepted his diploma, the crowd erupted in applause. Daniel stood, pride swelling as Sarah slipped her hand into his. His children were beside him, smiling, strong, and ready for the future. Becca remained seated, watching from a distance. Before leaving, Daniel glanced back once more and offered a small, familiar smile, the same one from years ago, now filled with peace rather than pain. Then he turned away, walking forward with his family. His victory was not in revenge but in the life he built beyond betrayal.